folks, welcome back to the channel. And I had to start a new stream. For some reason, my computer is not allowing me to, it's not talking to the webcam or the microphone. So I don't know what had happened there. So give me a minute to get my stand up here. My apologies. Let's see if it'll go this way. Play around for a minute and then we'll get going. I so apologize. I thought my hotspot would run the live stream. I don't know what had happened. It's the first time I've done it mobilely. Let me see. Let me get this. Get you guys up here. All right. Again, my apologies. We'll get this worked out. Just frustrating. And so let me get my glasses. We are an hour behind, or no, I'm sorry, we have 6:30, 33, 34 minutes behind. So the logistics industry has been really a hot mess. I want to say 20, the term 2023, then 24, 25, then people were starting to feel pain. I think the big one that hit home was Yellow, YRC, and being a union company as they were a long-standing union, LTL. When they went down, they pulled down 30 plus thousand people, and I've got some notes, and I have notes on the phone. Let me take a look here and see if I can actually pull my email up. I think I emailed them to me. So let me pull that up. So, in economics, as you know, the big name in hedge funds is Blackstone, BlackRock, and hold a lot of pension funds. So, people that are in the union, they have a pension, whether it's the Teamsters Union, the Teachers Union, CalPERS out there in California, which is the biggest one for a pension. The United Auto Workers that covers Ford, GM, Chrysler. Excuse me. It's been a long day. So, we'll get into other discussions. I've just been frustrated, so I'm off kilt a little bit here with trying to get the stream going and flowing. But private equity has bought into many companies. That's what they do. Yeah, thanks, Laura, for it. Hopefully, you pulled some people over from that other stream if they were waiting. So with private equity, their MO, and the big thing that was highlighted with private equity is if you watch the series Yellowstone, how they wanted to come in and take the Dutton Ranch. You know, they've got investors, venture capitalists, what have you, that buy into it, and then of course they sell it to pension funds to invest into them, because then they turn around and invest into assets, who then give a higher return that builds that fund. So it's like having an old style savings account where you put money in. The savings account gives you an interest rate that grows and expands. But the thing with private equity is, um, they go out and they look for assets. The biggest thing they look for is assets that have high value, a lot of equity, because they come in and even even I want to say, even similar to, if you go back 35 years to the movie Pretty Woman, when Richard Gere would he would buy either distressed or companies that he could buy, and they were more valuable by stripping them down, and that's equity stripping, selling off the valuable assets and just dumping the rest onto the market or onto someone else. Is How do you want to put it? They'll sugarcoat it. They do that in bonds, with tranches in bonds. They will put the AAA rated valuable assets up top, and then when you pull the covers back on a bond and look down, you will see how much of it is got bad rating assets in it, to where maybe that bond is more volatile or more liable. I want to say as liabilities. So it really doesn't hold its value, but they spin it like that. So private equity, they come in with a trucking company. Trucking company may have the building, the land, the trucks, everything's paid off. It's similar to where I've worked with two companies that has over leveraged and couldn't pay their bills, went bankrupt, equipment got repossessed, and bigger company come in and bought them up for pennies on the dollar. So private equity, they come in, they equity strip it. They will take loans out against all the paid off assets, turn around and lease it back, rent it back. Um, a lot of restaurants have done that already. Private equity has come in. Who did they do that to? Red Lobster. They came in and bought Red Lobster. They took loans out against the land, then turned around and leased the land to the franchisees, and then they turned around and paid their shareholders that equity. And then in turn, on the economic downturn, the business goes under, because now they've got debt, they've got bills, whereas they didn't before, and they don't have enough margin to cover the payments, the employees, what have you, and stay open and operating. Same with trucking companies. Trucking companies are already on a tight, thin margins. So private equity is a very, very bad thing. I stay away from it like the Black Plague, the bubonic plague. It is horrible for this country. But people have risen up by starting private equity, because they go around like locusts and strip businesses um, out of their assets, and then turn around, these companies go bankrupt, because then they have worked hard to pay their bills off, and then they're trugging along, and then someone comes in and tries selling them on, hey, let us be an investor, this and that. Then they take over the share of it, um, or they however they weasel their way into these companies, whether if they're IPO and they are public traded, or they come in and sell them a song and dance. If they're not on the market for shareholding, then they will buy up a company, give them a great offer. Montgomery was the first one I got, and then the other two were in Minnesota just recently. Those were two separate private equities that came in, stripped the company, run it in the ground, bankrupt it. Montgomery out of Alabama. So these are one way that the trucking companies are going out of business. It's the outside investors coming in, and the problem is they have shareholders to satisfy, not you, not the employees. They don't care about you. All they care about is, they want to strip your equity. They wanted to run, leave you with debt, because then they turn around. They bought, once they bought you, into your company, they turn around. They lease the building, the land, the equipment back to you. And if you're already running on tight margins, now you can't cover the bills. You're out. You close the doors, company's out of business, but they have taken all that money, stripped it of the assets. So like a paid off house, the everything was paid off. They pulled all the value out of it by taking, a loan against it. Boom. It's horrible, but that's the way. That's it's a horrible way that business is done here in America, and they've just left a bad taste, and especially a lot of people that look at socialism or communism because they look at that's capitalism for you, but that's crony capitalism. That's not free market capitalism. There's two different types. There's crony capitalism, then there's free market. Free market allows price discovery to happen and interest rates to fluctuate according to what people see, what the value is, what it's worth on the market. And then, of course, between the manufacturer and or um, the end dealer or the buyer, then that's up to them and what they want to spend, to make their margins, whether it's the banks or say a car dealer, and setting the interest rates. It should not be the Federal Reserve. It should not be the government intervening, but this again is crony capitalism, not free market capitalism. Big difference. Um, Everyone thinks that when things go bad as they are right now, they think we need more government. More government is the reason why we're going down as an economy, why we have had labor dumping from the last administration through open borders. They want cheap slave labor, and they want to basically just operate to where they're making all the money and we're basically living on a dirt floor in a hut, basically becoming a third world country. So let's start going over these. Montgomery, the sudden shutdown, it left over 1,000 employees. I did see one flatbed truck up there in Mineral Wells, West Virginia, a couple months ago from that company. Some sources say 8,000 out of work with Montgomery. The closure reflects broader challenges in trucking from high fuel costs, soft freight markets, and financial pressures on carriers. Um, the role of private equity in Rollins. So who was it? One Equity. Decision to exit due to market conditions, weak rates, high costs was a primary trigger. The thing about private equity is they have no business being in trucking, in the logistics whatsoever, because trucking is such on a high low, spike. Um, I want to say erratic market changes, seasonal changes, but economic up and downs that what they were saying there, this is not a place for them to be playing in. Now, the word is they may go and play in the tech sector of logistics, whether it's AI stuff that does brokering, any of this tech stuff that they're coming forward with. They can see a better cash flow at the end on this. Let's see, get out of this one. Yeah, and they shut down this past October with private equity owner. S.E.E fell through with its private One Equity, deciding to exit industry with poor conditions. Blah 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 blah. And I think that's horseshit myself. That their excuse for exiting. And One Equity Partners. All right. The other one was probably on my phone. I got my phone tied up doing the live stream, so I'm already booted out of that. But let's see. Two Minnesota trucking companies recently going out of business. Two Minnesota trucking companies recently going out of business. Minstar and Transport Design abruptly closed in, just last week. True North Equity Partners, another private equity. These closures highlight broader industry struggles. Blah 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 blah. I don't buy into that. Um, they just didn't make in trucking. There's just not enough margin to satisfy a private equity that has a boatload of shareholders that need to be paid out in money. Um, that's why I've said even like hardware or lumber stores, when Lowe's and Home Depot have come into town, they kill the mom and pop businesses like themselves, and or even appliance businesses, because Lowe's, and them get even heavily into appliance, so they affect many sectors in small, in the rural areas and wherever they go like a locust. The thing of it is if the mom and pop can go over and above and give great service and satisfaction, that's the thing. Even with the appliance, I've talked to appliance dealers who what keeps them in business is they service what they sell. Lowe's cannot. Home Depot cannot. All they can do is get a third party contractor to come in, pick up the appliances from the store, deliver them to the house, and it's usually uh, an articulated way they deliver. Like, hey, we got to deliver it like in a garage, or, but that's as far as they go. They don't do the install. When we looked into it back in when did we do that, Laura? April of 2020. Um, we priced out appliances at Home Depot, but the price was good, but the delivery sucked because they wanted to um, charge us per piece for each install, which came over $600 then to put in a over the range microwave, install the stove, dishwasher, and refrigerator. Over $600 to move it from the garage into the kitchen and plug them in. I ended up just doing it ourselves. It took us, you know, we we did it ourselves, saved the money. So the thing of it is Home Depot, Lowe's does not have a problem when they can't. If the market is a downturn like it has been, they don't have a problem closing a store, emptying it out, having a shell of a building there, because they have to do cutbacks, whether they got to lay off, cut staff, the way they operate the store, because they got shareholders to satisfy. The mom and pop does not. So at the end of the day, Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart, they have to satisfy shareholders, and when they're not, they got to look. The first thing they're going to do is dump labor. Labor is their biggest cost. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go forward here, because that's the thing why you'll see mechanics don't get the pay they really should be getting with all the IT in these trucks, because maintenance and mechanics are a negative asset on any trucking company's books. The same here with when we lease these trucks from Ryder. These guys should be getting way more money per hour than what they are getting. I've interviewed, because I do have my mechanics license for master mechanics license for Michigan. I interviewed to be a mechanic at Ryder. What was it, 2020, Laura? So yeah, 2020, and they said I was too late on experience, which the other mechanics said they would have taught me the IT side. I had the mechanical side. They said the problem is all these kids are going to school to learn the IT side, but the mechanical side of doing any engine rebuild, clutch replacement, rear ends, brakes, this is where these kids fall off the wayside on that stuff. Um, but they will go all day in on having a laptop in their hand and go around and diagnose everything. But then they got to have another guy come along and do the parts changing because a lot of them aren't taught that. They're just in to do the IT diagnosis. Let's finish up with this Minstar and transport design, then I'll get into some notes I have. Yeah, they fell under the umbrella of True North Equity, which horrible. Broader downturn. The trucking sector faces challenges from high operating costs, fuel equipment, and soft freight market, leading to bankruptcies and closures for other carriers like 10 Roads Express and Montgomery Transportation. 10 Roads was, I think it was the Teamsters and contracts were coming up due. We'll get into that. Market pressures. Issues like reduced demand, rising expenses, competition contribute. Of course, cheaper with the labor dumping from the open borders. Uh, the Volvo drivers. We'll just leave it at that. So, um, anyhow, companies with 300 to 500 to over 1,000 trucks, they've been closing without warning. A lot of these guys were left. Many company, a lot of these companies with sleeper trucks that would be out in either a region or over the road they're leaving their drivers stranded out there. I want to say Sunset that had 78 drivers up in Grand Rapids a couple years ago. They had a few drivers got stranded out there because when they shut these places down, they turn the cards off, so they have no way of fueling up the trucks or getting back to the yard. Some of them been decent. Said if you're on a delivery, finish the delivery, bring the truck back. They'll make sure you're covered and get your last paycheck. Probably a good third of them have been leaving these guys high and dry. And I think I had all the carriers too, and that's in my phone. Shoot, I got it set aside. Can't even pull that up now. All the companies that have been gone under that have gone under and explanations for their departure from the industry. Again, I apologize for this. I'm gonna probably work on this tomorrow night. Um, so mega carriers are now hurting. So here's the thing: we're in an economic downturn. 2024 and 2025 has seen rising costs and all kinds of jazz going on, which is leaving. Now, we've seen some big carriers go under, but we have seen a lot of small companies, but a lot of regional trucking companies have gone out of business. And that could, like I said, range from 3 to 500 trucks to a few thousand. So here's what I've kind of gathered up. Mega carriers are now hurting due to over expanding during COVID. They were over expanding during the COVID era. And when rates were to the moon and freight wasn't over in abundance. So there was a lot of freight and rates were high. Everybody and their brother was jumping in. Everyone was running down, getting new trucks or getting new used trucks. Bigger carriers were expanding their fleet by ordering up more trucks, um, and now it's put them in a pickle. Last year and this year, now operating costs have skyrocketed. Fuel, maintenance, and insurance and equipment loans have now all gone up in cost from last year to this year. Many of these companies finance, hundreds to thousands of trucks in lieu that freight volumes would carry them. Basically, this would carry them. They didn't see an end in sight. They just figured, hey, freight was going to the moon. We're going that way. Uh, they also thought that in 2018, and that did not work out either in 2019 when the freight market was down. Mega carriers have relied on um, cheap drivers to carry them to survive. And when I say that, they're hiring new drivers with no to little experience. Uh, underpaid drivers, foreign drivers, drivers on percentage paid contracts. When rates collapsed, so did these business models. So a lot of their business models that they changed or implemented or ramped up is failing. The next thing is on the mega carriers collapsing is brokers have squeezed the margins as some of the mega carriers were hauling from negotiated contract rates that were based on the 2021 pandemic contracted rates, though the cost of the business in 24 and 25 have gone up. So as business costs have gone up, they're still pulling on the 2021 rates, and now their margins, that has widened, but their margins have shrunk to where they're either breaking even or running at a loss. 2025 shippers have gotten creative by shifting freight to rail and regional carriers and direct partnerships, thus showing the mega carriers aren't as flexible in leaving in and they're leaving and not renewing contracts. The shippers are leaving and not renewing contracts with mega carriers. They are looking at the regional carriers, direct partnership, and or putting them on rail. When a mega carrier collapses, thousands of trucks disappear off the road, and that reduces capacity, which means rates will eventually go up. Not saying it's going to happen overnight, but it will shift, and it's a slow reset. But when it does, now the thing of it is the small carriers will actually win from this. And why? Because shippers want more dependable partners. They want more flexible local regional fleets and companies that will pick up the phone. You're not going to get that with these big mega carriers. They also want carriers that don't lose their freight in a giant system. And small carriers can survive in the shift ecosystem, but only if they keep their business model tight. So, they got to keep on top of things. They can't get sloppy. They can't, let costs get away on unnecessary stuff. Mega carrier company drivers. Now, here's the thing about these mega carriers and their drivers. These mega carrier company drivers, you may see driver pay cuts happening coming forward, going forward, route cuts, layoffs, and or less miles per week. And I can attest to that. Go to YouTubers that work at Prime. Slime Pack, she was already saying she would pull like 6 loads a week, and then it got down to 3 or 4. So they cut the amount of loads that she hauled a week was cut in half. So that takes a 50% pay cut then, and then Prime is all lease purchase. So now if you're making say $300 to $3,500 a week, now you're doing say 1,800 to 2,000 a week. You still got to cover that truck expense before you can pay yourself. They're going to take that out first out of your settlement. So that's all happening. Small At small companies, you'll see more stability because they're fighting to keep quality drivers. That's the thing. I can attest to that with the company I currently work for. They want quality drivers. We have to the company I work for, this is not the fate of heart. A lot of guys look at it, we're regional, but you are also required to come in and move anything from 100 to 400 pounds of weight, hand truck, um, unloading off from these trailers using a lift gate, or if the customer has a dock. Um, you have to muscle that stuff. A lot of that stuff has to be down stacked. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Depends on the customer. But you have to do a lot of lifting. And a lot of drivers, basically, as soon as they got to step out this door and walk to the back and get in that trailer, fold out the lift gate, and get in that trailer and start checking off product. And it's just like your Family Dollar or Dollar General, where you got to get in the trailer and chuck stuff down the rolling ramp. Here you have to, you got bigger, bulkier, heavier product, but we want quality drivers. We want someone that knows what the hell they're doing as far as navigating, because there's times I come out here, I can have 8 stops. I've come out in the same region that I work in and have 19 stops over 5 states and be out here 5.5 days, 6 days. And that's the same, with the other guys. They run day cabs. They're usually out 1 or 2 overnights a week. They stay in a hotel, but for the most part, they're closer. So they usually go out in their route over a 2 day span, maybe 1,000 miles, where I've already covered 1,200 miles in 2 days already, being Monday night, because we've expanded. And that was part of the agreement, is I was taking the expansion in this direction. So with that said, is you know smaller carriers are going to keep the good quality drivers that work hard, consistent, represent the company in a professional mannerism, and punctual, and they show up all the time. So here's the we'll wrap this up here. A freight recession is to weed out the weak, not the small, not the new companies, but the weak companies. The weak companies can be your mega carriers. And mega carriers with poor management and huge debt, those loads are the first to fall, which means shippers are going to go with someone that is more stable. The ones who survive will be small carriers with low overhead, owner ops who know their numbers, fleets with discipline, expense control, and carriers. Um, these carriers will have direct contracts. Basically, thus is becoming a quality over thus becoming a quality over quantity in the industry. So basically, you're going to get direct contracts with the shippers, because you're running you're running low overhead, you're running your numbers, you're running a tight ship. As far as you're not getting sloppy with your expenses and your overhead, um, thinking that there will never be an end to the good times. What to know? Know your numbers, operating costs. That's number one. Number two is cut unnecessary expenses. Don't be sloppy, but be diligent on needs and wants. Three, build relationships with shippers and not be dependent on load boards. Shippers um, are more open to small carriers uh, during these recessionary times. Um, the other thing is avoid debt traps. I've seen this firsthand with a company that went out and had to have a flex by buying all new equipment at 23% interest on each unit. So avoid debt traps. Example, leasing new equipment with high payments can bury you. Never go out and buy brand new equipment when you're starting out. Come on, and you got to have the right equipment for the job. Um, you're not going to buy a Cascadia and haul, heavy haul over dimensional stuff in a sense that has a 13-liter high gear. You got to know how to spec your truck. You need to know the specs from bumper, tip to tail. You, I can sit down and spec a truck out. Easy, 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 easy. You need to know if you're going to haul like I did in a day with my hooded Mac. You're going to need that big hood because you need a bigger square inch of radiator in front of you if you're pulling 200,000 pound loads compared to 80,000 pounds. It was not unusual for me to ever scale and have 105 tons on the deck of the trailer. Oh, that can't happen. It has effing happened. And I have scaled it at an oil refinery, and because the other scales wouldn't weigh up that high. In Michigan, we can run. I remember when I started out, we could run 13 axles. Then they dropped it to 11 axles total. So yes, it can be done. And it's all about your engine, the type of truck, the body style, depending on what you're gonna count. What are you doing with it? You doing dry van, reefer, flatbed? Um, you need to know your gearing, the type of transmission, engine. What's the distance you're going to be driving? Are you going to be like me? I drive most of my drive, 50% of my driving's in the Appalachian Mountains. So, owner ops and small carriers, choose your lane wisely, whether it's final mile, local dedicated, or regional contracts. These type of lanes for this business model are safer than raw over the road routes currently. So that's that in a nutshell. I think a lot of these mega carriers, unless it's these foreign drivers, which they're weeding them out because of non-domicile and what is it, citizenship and jazz like that. Uh, my opinion is do away with these visas and non-domiciles. Just do away with them. But understand it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on politically, but our government wants slave labor here to keep this country functioning. And we have risen during the Industrial Revolution over 100 years ago. And, now people complain about not getting SNAP food stamps and, this or that or this or health care. Understand that's first world problems. That's first world complaints. That's all it is. And, people come here because they'd like to have a taste of that. But majority of these non-domiciles are coming here and just shipping all the money back to their motherland. It's easy to get into trucking because they found loopholes. Also remember that in trucking, these things are a rolling house. These people don't need to come here over the border. When they flooded the border, they could get in these trucks, live in these trucks, make money, and ship it back home without having to purchase real estate. So these are a rolling RV for the most part, and these guys have figured it out. And now they have to just start cherry picking these guys out of the trucks and deporting them. Should they be deported? Absolutely. Am I against ICE? No. We have too many nefarious people that want to do harm. The people that are harboring them, they have no idea what's coming because these people will turn on them in a freaking heartbeat. And a lot of these countries are very well known for doing, I want to say bad things to bad people, and with no repercussions. They don't care. They don't have the mindset or feelings that the people here in America have grown to have, and you just got to know that. And I think a lot of these folks need to get out of their Disney World little bubble mindset and start seeing the world for what it is in a realistic sense and quit trying to dismiss it as this can't happen, that can't be happening. Yes, it is. I see it all the time. I can tell you that there are a lot of foreigners. And let's talk about that. Last week's live stream, last Monday night, I was up at that little truck stop. Right after I did the live stream, I was doing some banking on the phone with the wife, taking care of some bill pay. I had a driver 2 doors down from me. He got his Cascadia, came up to the truck. He had his Bluetooth headset in, and he came and knocked on the door. I looked over, and I was kind of like, I was in the middle of taking care of all this stuff, logged into the bank, and I'm like, what can I do for you? And he was like, well, I heard there's supposed to be a big snowstorm in that. And I said, and so he sounded like he had a Jamaican accent. And I said, that dude, that's part of trucking, adverse weather. You're in the mountains. And he was like just in anxiety and shocked of asking me, what should I do? And I said, dude, I just said, hey, I got to take care of this business. So when we were done, I told my wife, I feel bad. I didn't want to be a dick, but I said, let me go find out his story. So I walked over to his truck and he got out. We talked, and basically he's from Haiti. He was a Haitian, and he's only been driving for 30 days. He was out of Carol. He was out of North Carolina, and basically up in the Appalachians, he was saying that I I I don't know what snow's like. I've never seen it. I've never lived in it. Never touched it until I came to America. He goes, I came here, got my CDL. Now I'm worried I'm not gonna be able to keep my CDL because I don't know how to drive other than in flat, dry roads. And the snow was coming. Dude was having a panic attack over a steering wheel, just like, almost in tears, like, what do I do? And I said, should I lock my axles in? I said, yeah, lock them in if the weather's slippery, take your time, go slow. Slow and steady wins the race. If you push the truck past, its capabilities with the weather at hand, you're going to wreck. And so I gave him about as basic fundamental advice as I could. His thing was, I want to get back to North Carolina with this load, deliver it, park the truck, give him the truck, and say, I'm done. He goes, I can't do this. It's too stressful. So that's firsthand of dealing with a foreigner here. Um, I didn't look at his license, say, is it non domicile or anything, but this is a guy that was flipping out over it. Therefore, just shaking my head, I said, dude, I've been since 1988. I said, this driving in the snow and dealing with the weather is just, it's like chewing gum and walking at the same time, like walking and breathing air. You don't think about it, you just do it. So um, he just was in awe because that's not, where he came from. That just wasn't in the mantra of what they did down there. So, and to kind of bring the front side of this live stream to the back end, I left yesterday. I got up at 2:45 because I got up and I looked at my might as well get up. It's 15 minutes. I was gonna get up at 3. I was gonna get on the road at 4 because I had to start my day early to finish early because I needed to get my 10-hour restart in, then to turn around and make a 5 a.m. delivery today down outside of Maryland. So I got up and the wife came in and she goes, "It's freaking snowing again." So we had gotten, when I left Laura, what did we get? 2 to 4 inches of snow. So the week before, we got 14 on the ground when I dug my way out to get to the truck and get on the road. But it only lasted to the Indiana and Ohio line. But this time, the snow was coming in. We had a couple inches on the ground, maybe a little bit more, but it was still coming down. So by the time I got on the road, I dealt with it till I got between Toledo and Cleveland. Then it thinned out, and then when I got more south, dissipated and went away. Got up today, everything's great. I'm in Cumberland, Maryland, at that Love's truck stop where that Montgomery trailer ran over that Volvo. So I get up, I get rocking and rolling, get to my stop, deliver at 5 a.m. Man, I'm going. I said, all right, I will stop off at Winchester, West Virginia, at the Ryder shop there and get fuel. So I did that, and I wasn't there 10 minutes or so. Guy rolls in, opens up everything. I get my fuel. He lives about an hour up into the foothills of the Eastern Appalachians. I said, "Hey, how are the roads going up to your?" Because where he lives, I drive right through there. He goes, everything's fine and dandy. I said, "Cool." So I take off. I'm zipping along. What did I take? The 50 to the 259. The 259, if you come out of Winchester and see on the map, the 259 takes up and it bleeds into that ever building out Highway 48, which is a 4-lane, 65-mile-an-hour highway out in the middle of central Appalachia, but going east to west, west to east, however, which direction you're going. So I went up there and I knew where a scenic overview, which if you look in the live playlist, I did one earlier today. I did a live 3-minute live from a scenic overview, just overlooking the Appalachian Mountains, more facing the south, east, and west. Big mountainside next to me, but to the north. So I stopped. It was cold as sin. And I was 20, 25 miles east of Seneca Rock on Highway 48. I said, all right, well, cool. I got this in. It's cold. Great. I'm still climbing mountains, dry roads, no precipitation. I get to Seneca Rock. I think it's the 33, but I'm going towards Elkins, West Virginia. And I couldn't have gone 3 to 5 miles. And here we are in a fucking whiteout shitstorm snow. Roads are covered about 2 inches and they're greasy. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So, and that's the worst part of the drive. So it is, now I don't want to say so much a hairy switchbacks, but it's got curves, but it has 9% downgrades and upgrades. Uh, so the kind of telltale that about 40-mile drive, finally, when I came to a stop sign along the way, I locked my axles in, and I'm glad I did because when I passed, once I got away from that stop sign, I was probably halfway through that 40 miles, and TMC was going, and we were all going southbound. TMC, I don't know if he slowed down or what, but as you climb the hill, it's greasy. I'm about half, just a little over half loaded, not heavy, but I had to put the transmission in manual mode, being a stupid automatic. I held, I want to say I ran ninth gear. I know on the 10-speed stick, I could usually float around eighth gear and be comfortable through the switchbacks and all that. Seventh, eighth gear would do me fine. Ninth gear, I had to be high up, but not so, like eighth gear would have been too much RPMs on the engine, and I would have overpowered the tires and broke free and spun and probably lost traction going up those hills because those hills were 2 to 3 miles up, and ninth gear was able to keep it lugging to crest the top, downshift to get the R's up, get the speed momentum going. Then on the backside, keep it in eighth and use the jakes. But I could feel at one point there was 2 points of where I could feel with just coasting down and feathering the brakes. The trailer was pushing the truck, and the truck was starting to, I want to say, getting wiggly and sliding, and but it was a 9% downgrades on the majority of that stuff. It was enough. By the time I got to Elkins, I am getting effing tired of winters, and I've been doing this long enough. But I said, when the time comes and I'm done driving truck, I said, I am not living in Michigan. I am going where there's only sunshine. Because who the hell wants to be 85 living in the tundra? But it didn't stop there. Delivered in Elkins, left, headed towards out on 33 to Weston. The snowstorm only got worse. Came out on I-79 to the 19 to take me down to Beckley, and it continued to get worse and worse and worse. And then I got out to Beckley, took 64 over to here, and then it was just intermittent snow squalls where you'd have 1 to 3 miles of just whiteout and you can't see the road. And then you come out into the clearing where it's a wet road and you could run the speed limit. So it was in and out of that all the way across 64 to Covington from Beckley. And 2 days straight of snowstorms. And last week, that shit show. It was funny. My customer this morning, the first one, I pulled in. He goes, dude. He goes, your truck is always high and tight and clean. He goes, that's the dirtiest I've ever seen it in over a year. And I said, I'm driving in salt and snow all the time. I can't do anything about it right now. But yeah, it's been parking lot right now. Here, let me just get you guys out here. I forgot I got you on this. So as you can see my windshield, but it's all greasy in there. That's all grease. But there's been a lot of horn honking when I was trying to fiddle with the laptop right there. So we'll play with that tomorrow night, and I may have to do a test live or something. It's just saying on the laptop to go live. It just said you need to allow for the webcam and the microphone to do streaming. So I don't know if it was on the front side of making that live stream that it there was a button I didn't click. I don't know, but I will investigate and make sure we get better at this because all we can ever do is just keep getting better every day. But yeah, so right now the snow lightened up. It was really bad earlier. There was just snow just falling down onto my wiper blades and all that. So it's finally tapered off where it's not accumulating so heavily out here. But that's part of the industry. I told that guy from Haiti, I said, look, man, you're going to have snow here. You're going to go to Florida and you're going to have hurricanes. You're going to go to Texas and Oklahoma and have to deal with tornado warnings or tornadoes. I said, you go out to the West Coast, California, you got earthquakes, landslides from, water flooding. You got flash floods in the Rockies and the Appalachian Mountains. You've got to chain up going through Colorado in the winter. I said, pick your poison where you want to be at. There's no perfect place to do this in this industry. You have to be all around very diverse and able to adjust to anything thrown at you out here while driving. Weather, shit, I had that rock come into my windshield last year from a snowplow, passing me in the opposing lane, going westbound when I was going east. I've had a pheasant hit my window on the red Mac back in the early 90s and come right through, and it had that divider between the two windshields, and it pushed it in a good 6 inches. They had to redo all that T-bar in the middle and put two new windshields in. It's just things like that. Not pushing the truck past what you can for the conditions at hand. Now, the problem is people have asked, have you seen more of accidents? Why are there so many accidents out here? And there was a trainer, I want to say he was either at night, I think he was a trainer at night, and they had asked him, and he nailed it spot on because I'd been on the hilltop screaming that there's too much IT in these trucks. Volvos especially, with these new Volvos, they're a 24-volt system because now you got to find a 24-volt charger to do anything if you have a battery issue with these new Volvos. Why they got to be asinine to be different than the whole industry standard is beyond me. But there's so much IT in these trucks. People are like, oh, it's to, you know, driver safety. The driver does not have a grasp or a feel of what the road is doing underneath his tires. Between his tires and the pavement is that film or surface of grease, slick, ice, snow, rain, whatever it is. And if that truck hydroplane starts sliding out, that computer wants to start adjusting for that, and then the driver is going to overreact to what the or startle them, what the computer's doing, and then there we are with a ditched, jackknifed, or flipped over truck, and it's too much IT. But your insurance and your politicians and all that think they know what's best for us out here, but that's a crock of shit all day long. It's dumbed down the modern driver. These foreign drivers, that's why they're all in these Volvos because they're all IT'd out so damn bad that you could get a brain dead retarded monkey to drive those damn things. And well, you know what? Hey, better yet, just autonomous the Volvos. Get the damn foreign drivers out, and let's see what the computer can do out in the greasy Appalachian Mountains or the Rocky Mountains when they're in the mountain passes. Who's gonna chain them up? So I say everyone's like, oh, the autonomous trucks. I could give a shit less because the autonomous is not going to go out and chain the truck up, the tires, and they're not going to get in the back of this trailer and unload product that's a few $100 each. So am I worried? No. And you shouldn't either. Any driver out there should not be worried. The only thing they should be doing is sharpening and honing their skill set to be a better professional driver. Be the part, play the part. Don't come out here as some fat, gross slob in some stretchy pants from freaking Goodwill or Walmart, with flip flops on and some wife beater shirt with your gut hanging out. Our company has told drivers, you either come into this building as a professional or don't come out of your truck because that's disgusting. You know, it just looks like they crawled out of bed, scratched their balls, and didn't comb their hair. And that's about what it looks like. And it's disgusting what our industry, what these people represent. I've called out a few. I've called out a few foreigners that have thrown their feet in the sink. And I said, no, either go pay for a shower or get the hell out of here. Go put some boots on because you're out there fueling up at the fuel island, with flip flops on and spilling fuel or dirt or whatever all over your feet. Not my problem. So this is not a we problem. This is a you problem. And, so no, I don't support any of the Islamic, Muslim, or Somalia people. Um, if you're here illegally, and we'll leave it at that. I will not support them, and that's not a racist thing. There's a way to come, and if these people want to harbor these folks, I'm just going to be off on this rant. But um, maybe the bad things need to happen to these people too that are harboring because of their ignorance. So, but trucking, you got to take it serious on this type, this time of year with these conditions. It's going to definitely sort out your valuable, experienced drivers that a company has or an owner operator is compared to these greenhorns out of school that get minimally trained and have no idea, like that Haitian guy had no idea what they're getting into when the weather turns on itself and it's upside down and you're um, up against the wall with some kind of condition like a snowstorm, a hurricane, flash flooding. I've had flash flooding. I've gotten trapped in the Appalachians with flash flooding and had to drive, through 2 feet of water just to get out of the situation, and make back to high ground and go like an hour and a half out of my way just to get around it. So, that said, I just want to let you folks in that the logistics industry is not looking good right now, but I think it's going to look great for the smaller carriers or the people that know their numbers, your owner ops, smaller carriers that are running a tight ship and are positioning themselves to way through the recession storm. And I think that's the best that can be. And like I said, sometimes when you're with like for me, my wife and I have had this discussion the last couple of weeks that how I fell into this company and this job was like winning the lottery. It You talk to these guys that have had 20 years at Walmart and the money they're making and how the benefits and the treatment, and they're non-union and they're making great bank. They have great schedules. Walmart offers where you can work 5 days on and have 5 days off, 5 and 5, 6 and 3, 6 and 2. However you want to set it up. And they take care of their people. Private fleet, just like we are. Private fleet. I've ran for a rider, integrated logistics, where you go out, you do the route, and then you got to pick up a backhaul, and it just randomly goes anywhere, whatever it is you're picking up, and you just never know. I've had to do a lot of 34s out on the road because of mismanagement of the backhauls. Oh yeah, we're gonna get a backhaul. Then the backhaul ends up being 2 or 3 different drops in 2 different states, and it's like, come on. And with these guys, I have a backhaul. There's a few places we backhaul from. They reminded me today. Make sure when you get through the end of your route pick up your backhaul, would you? I said, yeah, no problem. I got it covered. So they said, don't worry about getting back. They sent an email out because we're trying to get year end quota done for our customers. And they're like, guys, we got to use up all your hours. And I'm like, I'm fighting the snow down here. So last week I was done with my route over what, three, 4 states? One, two, three, 4 states. Over 4 states I covered. I was done. I was back at the yard Wednesday morning, done, and I left Sunday. And I had 2,000 miles in by Wednesday morning when I rolled in from Sunday. And then I turned around, went back out, and ran another route with a half a trailer, yeah, a third of a trailer, and ended up with 2,400 miles. For regionally, that's pretty good. Um, a lot of guys will probably think, how do you get paid, this and that? I get paid well. I get paid. I just tell people because I've seen one of the guys explain how Walmart pays, and I said, I am pretty damn near how they pay on their pay structure and my year end pay. I said, I'm right there with a Walmart driver. So whether I got 10 years in this company or 10 years into Walmart, I'm still making that decent money. I'm making Walmart money. Do I need union money? No, because at the end of the day, I think in the long run, I think you're going to see, in my opinion, which I've seen over the decades. I have seen carriers that you guys would only see in pictures and that, or have to Google them up. But there's been a lot of carriers that used to be big time haulers from the Great the 1930s, 40s, 50s, post World War. I've seen a lot of carriers in my days, and they've been here and they're gone. And a lot of them were union. And I want to say a lot of these union companies, they're going to go under. I'd give 10 more years, and you're hardly going to see any union companies out here. It's my opinion. It's just my opinion, but I give it 10 years and they'll be washed up. Too much high labor rate. UPS is feeling it. 10 Roads has felt it. Yellow has felt it. Just saying, the trend is your friend if you follow it correctly. And that's the direction it's going. You've got to be a valuable asset out here to really make it and be valuable. And it's the small carriers, small fleets, the private fleets like this. I think going forward, that's the truth. They're the ones that are going to make it out here. I think the mega carriers are over leveraged, got way too much debt on their books. And even with the foreigners, more and more of them are going to start realizing, hey, this isn't for me. And you're going to start seeing a lot of them. You're either going to see a lot of walk away, or you're going to see a lot more of these drivers not give two shits. And these trucks, your big carriers, you're probably going to see more of their trucks getting thrashed, trashed, not care about the loads, whether they're on time. If the damage load, they just don't care. Just pay me. I'm going A to B. And, for the little bit, once they realize and get a taste of, oh shit, all these guys over here are making good bank. I'm over here getting the pooch screwed. And they're either going to walk away, or they're just going to make these guys look even worse as a carrier. And the shippers are going to be like, yeah, if you put a product on their trailer, it may be damaged by the time it gets to the other end, to the receiver. So I'm just saying, it's tit for tat, but you got to stand back at a 30,000-foot view, look at things, and see where it's going and what the trend is. So appreciate y'all coming back over on this stream. We will get this thing ironed out. I really want to be on that laptop. I'm going to make it happen. So until next time, folks, stay safe. Continue educating yourself. Knowledge is learned, not taught. And we will see you all in the next video.